welcome to another Clyde and Lomond Heritage Podcast with myself, Paul Murdoch, and
Robert Ryan.
And we're going to talk today, we're going to go way back in time to the formation of the area, which started about 420 million years ago.
You're looking to me for reassurance, Paul.
Well, I'm just checking
really
the work. And that was really when something called the Caledonian orogeny happened, which was when what is now bits of Europe, where we are now, smashed into what is now North America.
So what you're saying is we live in an erogenous zone?
Well, it seems like it. Is it? How do you spell it? Orogeny.
Yes.
So anyway, and that created the Highland Fault Line.
Right.
So basically tectonic plates hitting each other. And the fault line, as you know, goes from Stonehaven to
Helensburgh. Yeah.
It goes right across Loch Lomond, and if you look, you'll see, if you stand in Bowie, as you said before we came on air, you can look across the loch.
The islands are Inchmurn, Creeinch, Torrinch and Inchkailoch, and then up to Connick Hill on the other side of the loch. Yeah.
And that continues all the way up to Scotland to Stonehaven.
Yeah. And
that is where the hard rock, and I like hard rock as you know,
hard rock,
hit the softer rock and formed that kind of ridge, which is, there's islands now. Inchmurn's a cracker. If you actually go in Inchmurn, you can stand, have 1 foot in the islands, 1 foot in the lowlands, which is quite fun. And there's a wee video on Inchmurn on Clyde's Creative YouTube channel. Check it out, and we talk about the Highland Fault Line there. And after that, moving on, skipping 100 million years, we go on to the volcanic sort of area, time frame, where there's volcanoes in the area, lava flows, volcanic plugs like
Dumbarton Rock, and
the other one,
Duncrine at Gartahan.
Yeah, we call it the Dumpling locally.
The Dumpling,
and that would be yes. And they used to, well, obviously those volcanic plugs have been quite important over time for forts and things like that. Duncrine Hill, maybe not a fort, but they used to roll witches down Duncrine Hill, apparently, and in barrels. And if they survived,
in barrels, as if that was a perfectly normal thing for people to
get in there. Think you're a witch. You're going down this hill, and if you survive, you're definitely a witch. If you don't, maybe you probably weren't.
so the ultimate no-win situation.
No-win situation. And that whole witch thing in Scotland is crazy. Horrible, actually.
I think it actually lasted here even longer than it did in England. And there's several. I don't want to go too far off the subject, but James V was the very man for burning witches, and James VI and first was a very superstitious kind of guy.
Right.
Hence the reason that Shakespeare wrote Macbeth for him, which was all the witches and things like that. So surviving into relatively modern times. So
Shakespeare was writing about witches when really there was a real issue around witches getting and like the Wigton martyrs and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, they were kind of pegged out in the sea and drowned.
Horrific when you think about it.
Just wee lassies. Well, that was in that case a young lassie and an older woman.
Well, the whole thing is that if in those days, going back to James V, if he didn't like a woman from a certain family, and I mean there's evidence of this, that there was one of the Douglases that he just hated, and he called her a witch, and she was burnt at the stake, and apparently in front of her 13-year-old son. Anyway, we're going a wee bit off the beaten track.
Off-piste. Let's get back into the area. 300 million years ago is when that whole volcanic era kind of shaped the landscape a bit more here, and then you're skipping another 300 million years. I'm really skipping through time here till you get to the kind of ice ages starting, and they kicked off.
Extreme heat going to extreme cold,
and that was 2.6 million years ago. They had various ice ages right up in this area to about 11,700 years ago.
And so that was the kind of end of the Ice Age, and probably when human habitation of this area began.
I would imagine as the ice retreated, and obviously as it did, it gouged out Loch Lomond, and the northern part of Loch Lomond's very deep, as you know.
Yeah, I know at some points, I think near the not far from the island of Ivow, in fact, which is in the north half of the loch, it's almost as deep at points as the North Sea.
I think it is 600, maybe more than that, 700 feet deep. Something.
Amazing.
So yes, and as ice retreated, animals moved in, and I guess humans would be following the animals because they were hunter-gatherers back then.
No farming, I don't suppose, by that time.
It was Mesolithic, which is Middle Stone Age.
Nomadic tribes.
Nomadic tribes. Just following herds, I guess, setting traps, picking nuts and seeds. They used bows to hunt, usually made out of elm or hazel, or yew even. And
well, the yews are really handy for bows because the branches are so long.
Right.
So that's, in fact, going slightly off piece, but the island of Inchkylloch on Loch Lomond is covered in yew trees, and those yew trees were used for Robert the Bruce to make the longbows at the Battle of Bannockburn. The yew trees are still there. Some of them are hundreds of years old, and there's a protection thing on them now. If you go to Inchkylloch, you'll see the railings round some of the trees to protect them.
Well, yews can be thousands of years old.
Yeah. Well,
so basically, there's
I said hundreds, but I think there are some that date back to Bruce's time.
Certainly, there will be. I would imagine a very long-lived tree. Poisonous, of course. Every bit gets poison. The bark, the berries. In fact, the flesh isn't. But I wouldn't eat it.
No, I don't fancy it.
But it's pretty poisonous, and taxine, I think, is a poison, and I've now found it actually helps with some cancers.
Wow.
So, but anyway, we're getting right off piste here.
Right, well, just one quick comment was that many kings used Inchkylloch also as hunting ground, as they did with Inchmurden.
Well, I don't know what king it was, but one of them introduced, it might have been Bruce, the fallow deer that we now still have.
And we still have them on the Loch Lomond Islands, and you can see them swimming from island to island sometimes.
In fact, Ralph Carson, if he's watching, Ralph put on a video of them actually swimming. He took it from his boat.
Great.
And they were in there with their antlers out, swimming from island to island.
I was in my canoe one day, and I passed within 20 feet of 3 deer swimming from Inchcroon to Inchmone, which sometimes can only be a few feet apart, but this time the loch was fairly full, and it was about 20 yards, and I watched these things, and I'm looking for my camera, but could I find it? By the time I got the camera at all.
I'm really going off piste here, but I once went with Gairloch Head with my wife to see the whale. There's some whales at Gairloch Head. It was during lockdown, I think.
Yes, I remember it well.
Remember that? There was a bottlenose whale, I think.
Well, there was whales and there was dolphins, but I remember the whales, and I saw them.
Right, well, I went there as well, and I had the camera with me. No, I didn't have the camera with me, because we decided I'll not take the camera, because I was annoying her with the camera, because I was always out taking pictures. So I'll not take my camera, it's okay. Of course, we saw the whales, and she took her own camera, and I'll get them, and she actually started filming them. But she had at the point in the ring away, and she got a film of her face instead, going, "Oh, look at that!" Oh. Never get a single picture of the whales. Anyway,
back to the Ice Age.
Back to the Ice Age. So yes, as the ice retreated and left the landscape the way it is now, the Ice Age was a bit like a big bulldozer. So basically you had
it gouged.
The plates came together 400 million years ago. Then you had the volcanoes changing the landscape with lava flows and plugs, and then you had the Ice Age kind of gouging out and smoothing everything into the kind of landscape it is today. So basically nature made the blueprint, if you like, and then humans exploited it later on.
Yes.
And moved into the area. So maybe about the Mesolithic period is Middle Stone Age. I think it's when people came here, maybe 9,000, 10,000 years ago.
Right.
Hunter-gatherers, as you said earlier on. And they would just follow the herds and have temporary camps.
Yes.
They think... So there's now some talk that they actually had more substantial camps than that. And we'll come to that in a wee minute. But I just want to talk about some of the animals that they've been following in at the time. Certainly there was, as I said, European brown bear. There was elk in the area.
Wow.
And there would be even Irish elk at that time, and they became extinct in Scotland about 8,000 years ago. But they're the one with the massive horns. You see, they're just huge, and they would definitely trap and hunt them. And they were very interesting the way they hunted. They were ambush hunters.
Right.
So they think there'd be some people would chase the animal down a certain way, and there'd be another guy with a bow and arrow waiting on them.
Aye.
And really they wanted a one-shot kill.
Right.
Because arrows were very scarce, they were quite hard to make.
Right.
You would get a bit of flint, and in this area it doesn't have flint, but they have found flint arrowheads.
All right.
So
would slate not be any good?
No,
because there's a lot of slate in there.
There is, but no, they use flint. But there must have been some kind of trade. The closest place that has flint is Ardrossan,
right,
and Arran,
right.
So there must have been kind of trade between the people here and the people there.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about them being nomads. So there must have been, even though they were nomads, they were probably settled in a particular area.
They probably did skirt round follow probably the herds. They would follow in a certain area.
Yeah.
As I say, they used bows to ambush. They had traps as well, snares. They also had like nets made out of plants, and they would
drop
fish.
them on them.
Trap fish.
Aye, sorry.
And they also, what else did they have? They'd have pit traps as well, so animals would fall through. Right. And they had dead stone traps where they would drop weights on them once they hit a kind of trigger. Right. Or something, a big log would come and smack into it. So they had all sorts of ways of killing and catching animals.
Yeah, I suppose alongside that, given the violent nature of probably human life at that time, these would have been kind of weapons of war as well.
Well, I don't know how. There's not, as I say, any written history at that time. But you move on a bit further into
probably there wasn't that much pressure on the resources. That's when wars happen. It's when pressure's on resources.
And the amount of people in the area have probably been a lot less as well.
Yeah.
But it's the Mesolithic period. It's when you get to the Neolithic period where they start farming. That's when you see more evidence of kind of tribes, and
because they'll be defending their own
patch
area. Yeah.
So, but sticking with the Mesolithic thing just now, I want to just look at what somebody. I mean, we talked about. I think you asked before we came on. Would the people at that time look the same as us? And they would. They'd be exactly the same as we look now.
Okay.
Neanderthals passed away.
Well, and there was maybe a certain amount of assimilation as well, because I think
we were supposed to have interbred with Neanderthals a wee bit, which I'm not saying anything about Friday night in Ballach, but who knows? But I think
Friday night anywhere. Let's be honest about it. Yeah.
But I think there's a wee bit interbreeding. Apparently, Neanderthals as a distinct species were supposed to have died out about 40,000 years ago.
Right.
So we obviously are talking about 10,000 years ago when people moved into the area, perhaps.
So here's an interesting point then. So what is the period of human existence?
Well, that's a tricky one. That's another show almost. It's
right.
You go back to they found early human type remains in Africa, haven't they?
They have.
What was her name? Was it Lucy? I can't remember the name of the.
There was 6 mothers or something.
Something like that. They found it. I think in the Ethiopia. Is it Sudan? Somewhere about that kind of area.
Okay.
And
so all I'm thinking is, for a wee bit of context, that 40,000 years isn't all that long ago. When you're talking about Neanderthals.
No, not really. No.
Dying out.
So
in the terms of human history.
It is, and of course, because of the ice, humans couldn't move in this area that is quick, and you compare, the sort of what was going on elsewhere in the world where the climate was more favourable for humans.
Sure.
They advanced a lot quicker. I want to read a wee bit about what a Mesolithic man might have looked like. They say Mesolithic, the Middle Stone Age, occurred between 9,000 and 4,300 years ago. And after that it was the Neolithic, where people started to farm. And they found a building, dating around 8,500 BC. A place called Starcar, Northumberland. So that's a building. So I mean, they weren't all nomads, obviously, at that time.
Yes.
What else have we got here? We've got also ancient DNA from Cheddar Man, a Mesolithic skeleton. That was discovered in 1903, and it was a fully formed Homo sapien, fully modern human like us. Apparently they had the person they found, after doing what they can do these days, they had dark skin and blue eyes. I don't know how you can tell that from a skeleton, but apparently they can, DNA and things. He was about 166 centimetres tall. He died in his 20s. So it was claimed that at first when he was discovered he was 40,000 years old.
Right.
But it wasn't. It lived around 10,000 years ago.
Right.
But still a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, DNA has been such a revelation for historical research.
Yeah.
I mean, they wouldn't have known that about him in 1903. When did you say?
1903.
1903. They certainly wouldn't. It would have been 100 years after that they would be finding out a lot of this stuff.
So basically, in Cheddar Man, that's what they called the skeleton. He was actually, they were lactose intolerant, again, from the DNA. So he was unable to digest milk as an adult. And the ability to digest milk. In fact, even today, 65 to 70% of humans in the world are lactose intolerant.
Wow.
I mean, people in Africa think it's quite strange if you like cheese, for example. They're like, what? It's quite, because it's not their thing.
Right.
And Doggerland was still in existence at that time, I think. So basically, we were attached to Europe.
Yes.
You could walk from Scotland to Poland.
And that's within the time of human habitation and things like that. There would be there's presumably a wealth of material under the North Sea somewhere. Well, the remains of Doggerland.
Well, there might be remains of a stone circle or something. Who knows? But that's a wee bit after. But so there would also fish, as I say, with nets and even spears. Mm-hmm. They'd have pronged spears, and of course, one of the easiest foods to gather. And when you're somewhere like the Clyde, is mussels. So
indeed,
shellfish.
Yeah.
And if you go to Ardmore Point, there's a cave there. If you go in from the edge of Ardmore, in the way through the trees, there's actually a raised beach, a cliff,
right?
And it's got a cave. There's quite an ancient cave in there, and they found piles and piles of mussel shells and things from way back.
That would be interesting. I'm a regular visitor, but I only to walk the dog around the perimeter.
I've done a wee film, if you want to go on my YouTube, called Murdoch Films.
I'm taking a note.
There's one on the Ardmore Tower. So there's a tower in there which is used by people to go up and down the cliff.
Okay.
And there's also a Ardmore Cave, which is further round the way. Mm-hmm. Talking about open the car park and go round towards Greenup in that way. The first thing you'll discover if you go in is a tower, then you go further along towards Hellsborough, I suppose, and you'll find the cave.
Right.
And it's quite impressive.
I didn't know about that.
Mm-hmm. But the thing was, they had piles and piles of mussels. In fact, even we're skipping again, Balloch Castle, Lennox, the home of the Lennoxes. The old Balloch Castle, not the new one that was built in 1800.
Right.
Talking about the one that was the first way back in the 1300s.
Okay.
1100s, actually. The Lennoxes had a lot of castles in the area.
They'd one in Inchmurren as well.
That was built after the one in Balloch.
Yeah.
And that was because partly, I'm going really off piste, partly because
defensible.
The
plague, right? I see.
And it would be more defensible as well on an island.
Yeah.
So they moved there, and of course, just not long after they had moved to Lennox Castle in Inchmurren, the family got into big trouble.
Right.
So they basically were kind of outlawed, and quite a few of the males in the family were actually killed hung in Stirling.
Yeah.
And it was Isabella, I think it was, who was left, and she survived them and was allowed to stay kind of in exile eventually. She was in prison for a bit, but came back to Inchmurren and stayed there the rest of her days.
Right.
But her husband had been killed.
Yeah. And there's another thing, there would have been rabbits.
No, there wouldn't. I'm glad you said that. Because back in the Mesolithic times, there would have been brown hare and mountain hare.
Okay.
But rabbits are only introduced to Britain with the Normans.
Really?
So that's not an indigenous species to the UK.
Okay.
So the Normans brought rabbits over 1100, 1200.
Yeah.
And of course, they had them in wardens. The nobles had them set wardens and bred them for eating. Of course, they all escaped, and of course they're everywhere now, and they're pests, I suppose.
Yeah.
But no, there wasn't any rabbits here.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. And again, we're staying down this side road, but a lot of castles, and one that I can think of in particular is Tantallon Castle down at North Berwick.
Well, that's where she was imprisoned, Isabella.
Right. Well,
for a while.
At Tantallon Castle is one of the places where you'll see a ducat or a dovecot, and they kept thousands of pigeons, and that was for food.
Yep.
And
you pass one every time you go along the Stirling Straits, just to turn into Kippen.
Right.
There's a dovecot on the left. You'll see it. Just look at it next time you're driving in the southern streets. Anyway,
back
way
to,
off subject.
Back to the Stone Age. Yeah.
Well, back to the early settlers here. They're mobile hunters camps. They talked about their diet. Their flint tools, as I said, they got the flint from Ardrossan and Arran. And we talked about the animals, the fact that they were ambush hunters. And that gets us to about 5,000 years ago. And there's more kind of tribal community leaders emerge, all that kind of stuff. Clans, I suppose. In this area, they have found flint arrowheads where they excavated for the new Vale Medical Centre in Alexandria.
Wow.
Opposite the torpedo factory, they discovered flint arrowheads there. And also pottery from that time as well, which was ridged and marked with little circles. And you can see examples of that in Alexandria Heritage Museum in the library, in Gilmer Street. Upstairs, there's a great wee heritage museum up there. And they've got examples of the arrowheads in there and things. And a few other things that are really interesting. The pottery as well, it was interesting. And you're getting to that time where the Cockno stone, you had the symbols, the ring, cup and ring marks.
Cup and ring marks. There's quite a few around the Helensburgh, Glenfruin area as well.
See, and there's also apparently standing stones that pap a ring of stones that are quite well buried, but there's again, hardly any of this stuff's been properly excavated.
The Cockno stone, it's been reburied, hasn't it?
Yes.
Aye.
Apparently because of vandalism.
Yeah.
We'll put some pictures up kind of there, like we did last time,
yes,
of these things as we talk, the bears, the animals, Cockno stone. It was uncovered for a while, but I think Glasgow University did some work on it. And they took pictures and mapped it all out. But then they covered it up again by about a metre of earth. Again, another video with Clydesiders on Cockno stone as well. There's a chap we took who's an expert, Sam. He took us up to show us where it was, because unless you know where you're looking for,
you wouldn't see it.
It's a kind of diamond shape, actually.
Yeah.
And
is there not a plaque there or something?
Something?
Nothing.
There should be. It's one of the biggest sort of examples of cup and ring marks and the one big stone in Europe. And there should be a glass walkway over it in a visitor centre, and they should make something of it rather than bury it.
That's right.
I think.
Maybe in sometime in the future. There's a cup and ring stone where I walk my dog. There's a great track between Hill House and Rue, which they call the Highlandman's Road, and up on that walk there is a huge stone with cup and ring marks. The problem with that stone is that some farmer in the 19th century tried to blow it up, so it's now in about 5 big pieces. But the stone carving and some like people who have, I suppose, the equivalent of graffiti, but one of the dates on there is 1796, which is so old. But the cup and ring marks on that stone are still quite legible. And
the Cockno stone, by the way, is near Faithfully. You can still walk up the back of Faithfully and up to where it is. You can actually drive the car. There's a kind of Cockno car park up there as well, behind Duntocher. So if you can go and see where it was, it's better to go in the winter, because in the summer it's all ferns everywhere. There's no chance of finding it really. But if you look at a video, I'll give you a rough idea where it is. And you can stand where it's buried, but it's not much good, is it? But there are up there too. There's other stones with markings on them, and they don't really know what the cup and rings mean.
No,
you know what I mean? Really?
There's been a lot of research, but I don't think anybody's actually.
There's a lot of looks like stars.
And why on a stone? Is it maybe an altar or something like that?
And the rings stone. I mean, Calendish obviously is a famous one up near Stornoway, but that's probably the best stone circle I've seen. There's some cracking ones in Orkney.
The Orkney ones are the Ring of Broadgar and the likes of that are amazing. Yeah.
I did a Glow is a platform for schools in Scotland. They can go and see videos and different things. I did a stone circle film for Glow 10 years ago. So I think that's still on YouTube. I think I can get it, or that's that video. Anyway, we digress again. So really, I want to stop there. Really, I want to stop before we get to Bronze Age, because there's a lot to look at in the Bronze Age, and of course and bronze, of course, came about. It's an alloy of copper and tin,
right,
and it's like about, I think, 90% copper and 10% tin, and when you mix them together, the melting point goes down, so it's easier to manage and to make into things.
More malleable, yeah.
And when it sets, it's harder as well.
Yeah.
Hence, that's why it was good for weaponry.
You wonder how they discovered that.
I know.
Yeah,
Somebody's well, I'll try this somewhere in the world, and it's spread. So we'll look into the Bronze Age a bit more detail, especially in this area, because there are some findings, like I said, the arrowheads in Alexandria. But anyway, we've kind of meandered.
Been a great chat.
It's like two guys in the pub having a chat, my friend.
Well, that's what that. But it's a podcast,
and there'll be some facts we've got wrong probably, but we'll double check a few things, and if there are some things we get wrong, I usually put a wee strap line
caption
saying, we got that wrong. It's actually this date or this old or whatever. I'll do that. I'll correct ourselves.
That's good. I'm glad you're doing it and not me.
Well, that's if I can do it right. But hopefully you've enjoyed yourselves, and tune in for another Clyde and Lomond Heritage podcast, if I can say it right, next time.
Thank you.
Bye for now.